800-WVHU, online, 800-WVHU.com, and on your phone with a free iHeart app. Download it today. Well, as you probably know by now, why the results are still trickling in more than a week after the election, I have no idea. But trickling in last night was the newest member of Congress, who is going to make it 218 Republican members and give the GOP the majority for the first time in a few years. So that means Nancy Pelosi will not be the Speaker of the House. And here to talk with us about all this and the recent election is U.S. Congressman Brad Wenstrup from Ohio. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great. How does it feel knowing that when you go back in January, you're going to be part of the majority and Nancy Pelosi is not going to have the gavel?
It's a huge feeling. Now we got to get through this next lame duck session here in December. Coming up, we'll see what she tries to do during that time, but it does feel good, and we're prepared. We've been preparing for the last year at least with proposing what our agenda will look like, and it's not just complaining about what the Biden administration has done or what Democrats have done, but what we intend to do. And I think that that's important for the American people to see. If they didn't see it during the campaign, they're going to see it. And, our commitment to America is out there. One of the things that we'll be able to do, though, that's different, Tom, is we're going to hold the government accountable. The Democrats have had the gavels, and they haven't called anybody in to really go through what has taken place within agencies, whether it's the FBI or the IRS. The American people want to know some truth about what's going on in their government, and it's going to take gavels for us to be able to really do that. So not only do we have policies that we want to go forward with that, make Americans more free, that help our economy, that keep our communities safer, we're going to hold people accountable for the things that they have been doing. But it takes subpoena power, unfortunately, rather than an open discussion. So we'll have to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, it ought to be interesting. Some new faces coming into the Republican majority in the House. But before we get into some of the other things about the House and the agenda, talk about the disappointment, because unfortunately the Senate did not have the same success, and it took, really more than a week to find out about what was going on in Arizona, Nevada. I mean, I don't understand why it takes some of these states to count that long. But what happened that the Senate could not get the GOP the majority?
Well, I think that's something everyone's going to be taking a look at. And, certainly the predictions were that we would win more seats in the House of Representatives as well. I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis of taking a look at, the candidates that didn't win and what they were all about and what's the difference between those that won and those that didn't. But then you can also look at geography and what was going on. Certainly Ohio, Florida, even New York. If you look at the map of New York right now, Lee Zeldin didn't win for governor, but if you look at it county by county, New York is red. So I think that as you see people like Lee Zeldin and others in New York that were fighting on behalf of the American people, and that was their main focus, is that they're there to serve you and we're going to fight for you, those are the people that won. So we'll have to look at each one individually, what their alignments may have been, what their talking points may have been, and what was the difference. I think there'll be some lessons learned from that. But certainly Ohio, Florida, and New York have something to be proud of from the Republican standpoint.
Yeah, with J.D. Vance winning, but that's not a gain. But that was, that was a race that Democrats thought that they may pick up. So that was certainly important that Vance get across the finish line.
They spent a lot of money in Ohio, that's for sure. The Democrats did, and J.D. Vance won out. I mean, Tim Ryan, he's a nice guy. I consider him a friend, but I don't want him to be my senator. And, there's a lot of reasons why. And so he was presenting himself as something he wasn't. If you looked at his votes, he was with Pelosi and Biden all along. So the American people in Ohio got to understand that. And, we had a governor that won soundly. I feel good about the district that I'm representing. And by the way, we just drew our regional maps as far as representation within the committee and steering committee. where we vote to see who gets on what committee. And Ohio is now aligned with West Virginia.
Oh, good. That's great to hear. Yeah, and congratulations to you, by the way, winning with nearly 75% of the vote. That's a resounding victory over your Democrat opponent. And, you know, I have to say that it seemed like, for the most part, the election went well in Ohio. In West Virginia, I mean, we knew our results on election night.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, Congressman, that, you know, in Arizona, Pennsylvania, some of these, Nevada, some of these other states that do the mail-ins, if that does not change, how can the American people ever feel that we're having a fair election?
Yeah, they're not going to feel that way. You know, one of the differences is of the preparation that Ohio does. You know, we have mail-in ballots, and we've had that for some time. Certainly those numbers have increased, but what we do in Ohio is we open those ballots, we verify them, and then we count them immediately on election day. And it's the first thing that's done. So your mail-in ballots are done within the first 15 minutes after the polls close. In these other states, they don't even open them up. They just start opening them after the polls close. And they just do some things that don't make sense. And so it just delays the process, and it always leads people to have some suspicions about what's going on in those states. And, you know, it's just amazing to me. And I know that our Secretary of State in Ohio, Frank LaRose, he goes around to other states trying to tell them there are ways to do this better. And I think Ohio is a good example of how we make it easier for people to vote, but harder to, and give the results early.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with District 2 U.S. Congressman from Ohio, Republican Brad Wenstrup, won resoundingly on Election Day last week. So with Republicans taking back over the House, is there any reason to think that Kevin McCarthy would not be the Speaker?
Well, I don't know who else would be. I don't think anybody's worked as hard as Kevin McCarthy over the last 4 years to have us where we are today. You know, look, last term we were supposed to lose 15 seats. We gained 15 seats. You really have to look at the big picture of how much we've gained over the last two elections to see where we are. Kevin McCarthy is responsible for such a good portion of that. That man has worked tirelessly. He has been all across the country. He knows every one of the candidates, and he worked to help every candidate out there so that we could take the House of Representatives back. And some people may have a disagreement with him on one issue or another. That's bound to happen. We're a deliberative body, and we should be. So I hope that we pull it together at the end, because there really isn't anybody else, and there's no one else feasible that's going to take it. So, you know, it's a lot different than when John Boehner was leaving, and he turned to Paul Ryan and said, "You're the only one who can get 218 votes." Now, Kevin McCarthy is the only one who can get 218 votes. And so I think that we're on our way, and Kevin's going to work with those that may be holding out, and I think we'll get there. We're going to have to get there. If we want to accomplish what we want to accomplish, that all of us want to accomplish in the House of Representatives, we have to get around a speaker that's going to lead us, even if we have some differences with the speaker from time to time.
And you really don't have a lot of margin. I mean, you know, we got some races that haven't been we don't know the results yet, but you're not going to have a tremendous margin for error, because you're going to have pretty much everybody on board in order to pass things out of the House, in order to stop things that come from the Senate and from the White House.
Yeah, no, that's very true. We're going to be very disciplined. There's no doubt about it. But I hope that, and I think we will, lead by example in pulling ourselves together. That's just how it's going to be. And what I've been told historically by those members that really have a good grasp of history of the House of Representatives, in the past, when that has been the case for Republicans, we have gotten it done. So I hope that that's where we end up. We may have to deliberate a little bit more. We may have to have a little bit more give and take on things. Look, when you're in the majority, no matter what your numbers are, you're going to have people from a broad spectrum of districts. You know, a lot of times when you're in the majority, that means a Republican has won in Democrat districts. And if they're to represent their district the way they want to, they have to modify some of the things that we talk about. And so we're going to have to come to some conclusions that we can all agree on, because there's a lot of common ground out there amongst the Republicans in the House. And I think that that's where we'll come together. And we were working on our task forces for Commitment to America. Everyone was involved. It wasn't like just this committee or that committee. It's certainly you have committees of jurisdiction, but we wanted every member to feel involved with those task forces, and that's what we did. So I think we'll just have to conduct business in that way to come to common conclusions for the positive things that we want to push forward on behalf of the American people. And, for the people today, it's about their cost of living. And, they also want to see accountability in the government and consequences for failures and move forward. And that's our plan of action.
Yeah, I just saw something, headline. It said your Thanksgiving dinner has increased by 20%. I mean, and not only that, but here in the Huntington tri-state area, Congressman, we're waking up to 20s and low 30s already in mid-November. So global warming's done, and folks are going to have a hard time heating their homes this winter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality, and I think most people understand that. And, look, I'm all for monitoring the planet and understanding what's taking place. And if we do have some say in our weather, then maybe there are things we can do. But at the same time, we had a hearing, for example, on the effects of climate change on health. And I wanted to point out the effects of energy shortages on health. I can remember one time being in Chicago at a Cubs game, and it was so hot that they were just watering people down through the entire game. But there were brownouts. 500 people died in their apartments that weekend in Chicago. What's the effects of an energy vulnerability on health? Go through a hospital and take a look at everything that monitors the patient. Everything needs to be run on power, and if the power goes out, they go to generators. So we have to be smart about where we're getting our energy, and there's no reason that the United States can't be energy independent, and when we are, energy goes down.
I was talking yesterday, Congressman, to a local Republican women's club here in the Huntington area, and I was telling them, basically giving an analogy, because I'm also coaching basketball, and I said, in basketball, we've got to get back to the fundamentals, being able to dribble, pass, box out, rebound, and make the shot. And the GOP needs to get back to the fundamentals of lowering taxes, of less government, less spending, less regulation. And I understand that you only have the House, but how can the Republican U.S. House make a difference in those areas? Certainly, you control the power of the purse. We should stop seeing these massive spending deals.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a look at things that Democrats have passed, like 87,000 IRS agents. You know what? That doesn't happen if we don't fund it. And those are the types of measures that we have to take in the House of Representatives and just say, it's not going to happen. We are not going to fund these bad ideas. So they may be passed, but it all comes down to appropriations at the end of the day. And that power of the purse is something that we have to have. And so I think that, if push comes to shove, that is the responsibility that we're going to have as leaders in the House of Representatives to take some of these burdens off the American people. Because, look, it's no secret that this tremendous amount of spending that the Democrats have done by controlling the entire government is what has led to this increase in the cost of living and the expenses that everyone's feeling, not only at the pump, but at the grocery store and everywhere else.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm hearing, though, is that if during the lame duck a CR is passed to keep the government afloat, that they'll pass that through September of next year. So that handcuffs you guys with the new majority in the House basically for 9 months.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we're not going to go ahead and work on our appropriations bills and making sure that we get them done. That was a big part of the discussion yesterday, is how do we make sure that we do our job and get the appropriations bills through committee and then on the floor and done in a timely fashion. So that certainly those things do come into play, and we have to consider that. And then we're also going to have to face the idea of increasing the debt ceiling. I mean, the Democrats have run up all these bills. We got to pay our bills. We know that. What comes down to with that is what we have to decide as a conference is what we want for that. In other words, what are we going to put in an increase in the debt ceiling to pay our bills that start to turn this ship around? That's a responsibility we're going to have. That's going to be a battle for us, and we're going to have to do that. But they've racked up the bills. America has to pay their bills, and now it's coming on our watch. So we're going to have to find a way to do that, but also start reducing spending.
Is there a way, Congressman, to stop that long-term CR, or at least make it to where it's a short-term continuing resolution that just funds the government, say, through January?
Yeah, well, I think we'll be having those debates, but again, until January, we are not in charge of the House of Representatives, and Nancy Pelosi has found a way to get her members to vote one way or another, because a lot of them wouldn't even be voting because they don't want to come back here anymore, but they do proxy voting, so she controls those votes as well, and she's not going to let somebody go up and proxy vote against her. So this is how she's had tremendous control. But I will tell you, we're getting rid of that. We're no more proxy voting. You have to be present to win, as they say. And you're going to have to be here to work. You're going to have to be here to be in your committees. And we're going to have committee hearings, something that has really gone away in the past year especially. I'm on Ways and Means Committee. We've had more hearings, just Republicans alone, than the entire committee has, because they're just waiting for things to come down from the White House and Nancy Pelosi and then push them through. That's been the way this body has been functioning for the last year, and we're going to put an end to that.
U.S. Congressman Brad Wenstrup from Ohio, Republican, who had a resounding victory last Tuesday on Election Day with 75% of the vote. Sir, thank you so much. Again, congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. Always good talking to you, Tom. You hang in there.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, sir.
Thanks. You too. God bless.
God bless you. All right, 7:21. This is the Tom Roten Morning Show.